Signed in? Yes? Okay. My name is Twee Shutt.
Twee, this is John McNally.
Oh, so, yes, John, do you want to start doing your,
Are you ready to go? I
I
haven't
am ready to
officially
go.
started the broadcast yet. Okay, if you like, I will go ahead and start the broadcast. It'll make an announcement, and then I'll make a little announcement about the ways that audience can participate in the virtual session.
Great, thank you.
So if you're ready,
I'm ready.
here we
The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello and welcome. My name is John McNally, and I will assist with the GoToWebinar portion of today's meeting. Before we start, I'd like to review a few housekeeping items so the virtual audience members know how to participate. Their microphones have been muted to reduce background noise. There will be specific times during this meeting when audience members can participate. The first way is by typing your question into the questions section at the bottom of the GoToWebinar interface. Those items will be read into the record by a meeting organizer at the appropriate time. The second way is by clicking on the raise hand icon indicating you wish to speak. The meeting organizer will announce the next speaker at the appropriate time and unmute their audio, at which time you should state your name and address for the record. Please minimize any sources of background noise and speak clearly into your microphone during your allotted time. I will now turn control over to Twee Shutt, who will be presiding over today's meeting.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Twee Shutt. I'm the Executive Director for the Boynton Beach CRA. And welcome again, and thank you again for attending this pre-submission meeting. This is again for the 115 North Federal Highway Mixed-Use Redevelopment Project. And everyone should be signed in, and everyone should have an agenda before them. Okay. So I'm going to go do a brief overview of this project, and then the process, and then the requirement, as well as the evaluation criteria. But first, I'd like to also review the attendees. We basically have staff right now with us virtually. And if you'd like to maybe have you introduce yourself. Well, actually, you know what? Sorry, I forgot. This is I can introduce. There's Gary Dunmeyer, our Public Works Director, Amanda Reidigan, Principal Planner for the Planning and Zoning Department, Adam Temple, Development Director, Chris Roshek is with Utilities, and is it it? I think that's it. So also, what we'd like to do is, at the end, review the project schedule, and then open up for answering questions. So hopefully everyone has received the RFP, RFQ documents that was published on July 23rd. And it's a pretty extensive document, but hopefully you have read over it and you have questions that you can prepare. This is not the only opportunity in which interested parties may submit questions, and we'll go over that with this project schedule. So Bonnie, can you bring up the map? So the brief overview is, this is our site. The site is located at the southwest corner of Boynton Beach Boulevard and US 1 Federal Highway. There's approximately 1.8 acres that is owned by the CRA, or there's a small portion up in the west side, closest, that fronts on Boynton Beach Boulevard. We will be closing that property soon in November. So this property is currently used as public parking spaces for the adjacent use, with the exception of the 508 property that I just previously mentioned, that it was currently an office with associated parking. In this RFP, it is also referenced that the property label is number 5, consisting of 3 properties, 511, 515, and 529, is under negotiation right now. We hope to have a purchase and sale agreement to the board in the near future. All appraisals, all surveys, all documents of record have been provided as part of the RFP, RFQ process, and I hope you all have looked at it and had a chance to use that information towards your proposal. I need to also ask, please make sure if you're not registered, make sure you sign in with the sign-in sheet so that we will now make that an official registration list with the attendees today. because we will only give information on updates to those that are registered on that list. So please remember to do that. I'm going to briefly go through the requirements and give you more time to ask questions of our staff and the city staff. So if you want to just, Bonnie, can you bring also up the RFP, RFQ? I'm going to go straight to the requirements proposal, which is page 3. It starts with the architectural and design elements. These are design guidance for you to look and incorporate in your proposal. I'm not going to go through each of those, but there are 2 types of requirements. There are the design requirements, and there are the required elements, which are the things you need to submit. So paragraph number 9 talks about the design. And I must emphasize, a lot of these resulted from board discussion as well as a public survey that was done by the CRA as to what can be in this project. So one of the more important things is creating affordable housing. And again, the income range is 80 to 140% of the city of Boynton Beach area median income. And those are described in the RFP. Also, incorporation of public spaces and plaza. Also, construction of a minimum of 150 spaces that are open to the public that are not part of your development proposal requirements for those uses that you're specifying in your proposal. Multimodal accommodations and a high quality exterior design and lighting enhancement. Of course, lastly, the environmental features that needs to be incorporated. So those are more design related. Paragraph 10 will talk about the things that needs to be in your submission. And please, please, please make sure they're in this order. Tab appropriately A through, I believe, T. So again, I'm not going to go over those, but just highlighting the important factors. It's important that we need to know the quality and experience of your team, and as well as the financial capability of your team. And your team can consist of partnerships, subsidiaries, however you want to formulate this proposal. But make sure that your financial numbers match and are consistent with your proposal. We also provide that you need to give us similar projects that you've been involved with, similar mixed-use project with affordable housing components, as well key personnel that will be in charge of this project on a day-to-day basis. We also ask that you provide the name and description of the legal entity that's going to be serving as the lead contact for this. Any of the profile, any kind of brief description of your team makeup and members, that's also required. And you need to state whether your proposal includes lands in addition to what the CRA is offering. And of course, the layout needs to reflect what you're going to do with our property or what is being proposed on the CRA land, as well as the option for including other lands outside of the CRA-owned property and the financing that goes along with those proposals. Again, the pro forma and the financial analysis also needs to have a detailed breakdown of how you're going to fund the project and how you're going to build the project and how you're going to sell or lease the project. Your sources as well as your uses in the funding needs to be clearly stated. And any subsidies that you would like from the CRA, it needs to be clearly stated as to the amounts and what that will be used for. It is also important to describe any local engagement of qualified contractors, subcontractor, laborers for the project, and any apprentice and apprenticeship training program. And how are you going to go about and engaging local participation? That's very important to our CRA board members. And again, the most important thing is really proof of financial capability for the proposed project. So there's two ways in which you can submit. You can submit financial information statement, 3-year statement, past income, so forth, or you can submit a third-party evidence of the ability to secure the financing for your project. And that details exactly how you can submit those. Any acknowledgement, I have to remind everyone that all those attachments in the back, please fill them out, complete them, notarize them, because the completeness of your application is going to be reviewed based on what you submit to us. So the rest of the package is just self-explanatory. I can answer any of the questions, but those are really the important factors. You're qualified financially, qualified by experience or past experience, your quality in your team, as well as the design components of the site. The deadline, again, is October 19th, 2 p.m., no exceptions. We will not take anything in that's late. It's got to be dropped off by courier or in person. No emailing. And then that leads us to really the evaluation criteria, and that starts on page, I believe, hang on. Sorry about that. That starts on page 10. So you will be required to meet some of these, or actually all of these, to the greatest extent possible for your proposal. The capability of the proposal and development team, obviously, we talked about submitting the qualifications. The likelihood and feasibility, this is important. We have included, this is one of the first time we included a form that allows you to go to the Planning and Zoning Department to describe your project and see what is it that the code allows you to do now. And that's included as attachment. Sorry, I had it. There's a form in the back that you would, attachment E. They're just general information. And again, it lists all the addresses of the properties in this assemblage. And then really, what are you doing market rate? Are they rental or for sale units, total number of units, parking and other uses, overall height, as well as any entitlement application that needs to be vetted out. Again, another value criteria is the financial return effects to the CRA, Boynton CRA. And that's thoroughly described in our published RFP and really the fulfillment of the CRA requirements and objective for the project. So hopefully with all these 5 criteria, there are no points assigned to it. The board can make their decisions and it will be reviewed for sufficiency review by staff first before we present it to the board. And once the board reviews these, they actually would have 2 meetings. So first of all, once you submit it, it will not go to the CRA board until November 30th. But before that, they would like for the CRAB, the CRA advisory board, to look at it on November 4th. Then the CRA board will make the first review, or take the first review at it on November 30th, and then make the selection on December 14th. It is our intention to have the agreement negotiated and back to the CRA board by February 8th of 2022. Again, all the contact must be in writing to myself at the email provided in the RFP. And then any of the previously submitted questions will be answered, as well as any of the questions here will be answered in the form of addenda. And I anticipate, depending how many questions we get, maybe within a week by next week, we should have the addendum number 1 issued out. So it'll be copied to all respondents that's registered, or potential respondents that's registered, and it'll be published in the on the CRA website. But just to note, this meeting is recorded, and this will be available online for those that can't attend, or for those that are here and wants to just hear back all the responses and all the questions. It's really important also for me to point out there is a cone of silence, and it will last until the board decides to end the solicitation process. So with that, I will open this up to questions. But if there's any questions regarding the schedule or any requirements for the evaluation criteria, please, you can feel free to ask that as well. And I would advise, if you have a question, please step up to the microphone, introduce yourself, your firm's name if you want, and state your question.
And Tweed, this is John McNally. As a reminder for anybody who is attending virtually, please use the raise hand icon, which has been enabled, or you can type your question into the question section and we'll answer those in the appropriate order. Thank you.
Yes, and I also wonder, Bonnie, has anybody written any questions that, for us to read out loud? And
John's monitoring that for us, but
Okay.
so far I don't see anything either.
Okay.
There are no questions that have been
Wait.
posed yet, but I do have Mr. Mark Heffron raising his hand. So if you like, I'll unmute his audio. Mark, I believe you are also self-muted, so if you could unmute from the GoToWebinar interface.
Okay, thank you, John. Good afternoon. Tweed, thank you for the introduction. And I know we posed this question in writing, and based on the CRA meeting that was held last Tuesday, I think the question still remains as to the closing on the Oyer property. Seeing the dates of when this is due to be submitted on October 19th, and I think this could also apply to the Bradley Miller property. I appreciate you showing how that's under contract and hoping to close by the, I believe the 11th or the 21st of November. Does the CRA anticipate that both of those properties would be available for the offerers to include? And is there an anticipated value that the CRA will require as a minimum to bring both of those properties into this development?
I can answer in 2 parts. So for the 508 East Boynton Beach Boulevard property, we will be closing on it in November, on November 21st. That will be as part of this development. That's why we know that that's going to go through because we have an executed purchase and sale agreement already. So we know that will be part of that. The valuation has been provided or will be provided if you would like on that. As far as the Oyer property, we're actively negotiating a purchase and sale agreement with 500 Ocean Properties. We don't know when or how that is going to play out because we still have to do our due diligence and do all the negotiations that's needed for like any other acquisition. But the board did receive from CRA staff an appraisal of I believe, $4 million. Yes, for the property. And the board has directed staff and agreed right now at $3.6 million for the purchase price of the property based on the asking price. Again, we still have to do our due diligence. We haven't had a chance to do that until we have an executed contract from the Oyer. As far as your question, I know you submitted a question regarding the leases. Again, due to confidentiality requirements, the property owner is not willing to disclose those terms of the leases until they have an executed contract.
Okay, and maybe to add to that, if I could, the parcel shown as number 4, which is owned by the Raja Family Investments. We understood in some conversations by phone this week that that property is also being considered to be acquired by the CRA. Is that a true statement, or are we just hearing something that's not been validated?
Not that I know of. We have not received any direction from our board to pursue that. Now, between now and the time the CRA board meets again, we could have, somebody could approach us from the property owners, in number 4. But no, staff have had no direction to pursue that.
Okay, and then if I could, maybe a question for Amanda. I know when we met and went through our design initially for the site, the master plan, that along Federal Highway, I believe that is to be faced with retail, and no higher than, is it 35 feet along the Federal, and then you have to step that back before you can go up on the height? And I don't know if she can hear me, Twee, so I don't know if that question has to be repeated.
John, is she able to raise her hand? Amanda, would you like to answer, or?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
Yes, Amanda, this is Mark Heffron. When we met and went through our initial design, we were talking about the setback and height restrictions along Federal Highway. And if you could you just revisit that also along Ocean Boulevard as to the setbacks and height restrictions that would be in place for this property?
Sure. So this property fully goes under our urban commercial overlay. You would need to meet the overlay guidelines on top of the underlying zoning district requirements. The guidelines require a pedestrian zone made up of 3 different components along Federal Highway. It includes, we're testing my memory a little bit, but I'll try and give you some roundabout numbers. You need a street tree area zone of about 5 feet. You need a publicly accessible sidewalk that's about 10 feet wide. And then you're also required to have a pedestrian zone that houses things like commercial, outdoor dining. That's another 8 feet. And all of these are measured from the back of curb inward into the property. I think the other thing you asked about was height. I believe the only additional height standard that's within the overlay is a maximum height of 45 feet along Federal Highway before there is a step back in the building of about 10 feet. After that 10 feet, you're permitted to go under whatever the underlying zoning district permits. Did I catch everything that you asked?
If you could maybe expand on that for Ocean Boulevard, would that be the same restrictions or same requirements?
They would be the same. Ocean Boulevard, I believe in this area is under the same overlay versus what maybe you may be thinking is the cultural district, which actually ends at the tracks.
Okay.
So the requirements would be the same.
Okay, and I meant to say Ocean Ave, but maybe for Gary, Gary, there's a right-of-way between Ace Hardware and the CRA-owned property. Is that right-of-way? It can't really be seen on this drawing, but is that right-of-way part of the development, or could it become part of that development?
Twee, do you know the answer to that? Because I'm inclined to think that it's probably right away that could be abandoned.
We're gonna have to look at the surveys that we have. Again, we only have surveys as we buy these properties of that property. So any of the property along in between the Ace Hardware and, you know, the right of way, I'll have to check our survey, but I can, again, we're gonna take a lot of this, the notes down. If we can't answer it, we will be able to give you the answer in the addendum, Mark, after reviewing.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, that'd be great. That's all I had. Thank you.
Yes, I see Bill Morris in the audience with his raised hands.
Hi, excuse me, my name is Bill Morris, 777 East Atlantic in Delray Beach, and thank you for doing this, Twee. I think this is very helpful. The question I have is that when we submit our plan to the planning department for review, will we have the chance to have other disciplines like, you know, Gary's group and public utilities and that be able to weigh in on a, you know, let's say our plan so that we can early on understand, you know, if we're heading in the right direction or if we have, issues, whether it be with, again, with public utilities or other planning issues, because I would like to know, hopefully, you know, sooner than later, about, you know, the realities of what we're hoping to do anyway to know that we can continue to refine that. So I guess the question really is, how long would it take to, if we wanted to have a meeting with the planning department, how long would it take to get that meeting established? And secondly, would it include perhaps a number of the disciplines here in the city, utility-wise, and that would be able to weigh in on, let's say, on our plan or other plans?
So the RFP does not require you to submit full site plan, but we would encourage, if you would like to know better your feasibility of your development, we encourage you to, you know, contact city staff and maybe ask for a pre-application or at least a pre-review before you submit. That's really up to the respondent and at their discretion to do their due diligence. We just want to make sure that what you're proposing is feasible under today's code. If it's not, and there's other issues that may need to be fleshed out, or that needs to be developed in your proposal. So for instance, if you need variances, conditional uses, whatever that you would need in your out-of-the-box proposal, we would like for you to at least have that vetted out through your own team, as well as any necessary meetings with staff.
Great, thank you. That was really the point of the question, because I'd rather know, you know, sooner than later if we're heading in, you know, again, in the right direction. So
Right.
thank you.
And of course,
Thank
you're
you.
still going to have to go through whatever
No,
process it needs to
I
go through the
understand.
city for a formal review for your site plan approval processes.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Morris, also, if I could add. Do you hear me,
Bill?
Twee?
Yes, I can hear you, yes.
Okay, good. I just wanted to make sure.
Thanks, Amanda.
If you did want to coordinate with other staff, you could definitely just contact me and I can organize an informal pre-application meeting that offers open to anyone who's interested. And I'd be happy to coordinate that for you.
Okay, super. Thanks, Amanda.
John, do you have any other raised hands or questions?
Tweet, this is John McNally. No, I do not see any hands raised, and there are no questions that have been typed into the interface at this time.
Great. Then hearing none, are there last calls? If there are none, we're ready to close this meeting. Please remember to register. And with the few comments that we have, we will have the answers typed up in addendum number 1, and it will be released to all registered parties as well as posted on our website. And we wish you all good luck, and we're very excited to receive your responses. Again, remember September 30th is your last day for requests for information, for any questions. And October 19th is your deadline. Thank you so much. We appreciate all your talents and interests.
And Twee, this is John McNally. As a reminder, a recorded version of this session will be posted to the CRA's YouTube channel. Links to that channel are available on the CRA's website at www.boyntonbeachcra.com. This concludes today's meeting. On behalf of Twee Shutt, all of the board members and CRA staff, thank you for attending. Be safe and have a great afternoon.
Thank you, John.